What's going on, guys? bizanix here. Today we're going to be talking about the Outer Rim DLC and is it really worth $15. Now, I made a previous video about is Bespin DLC really worth $15, and I came to the verdict that if you're a very good player and you like the game a lot, then it's definitely worth it. But for this DLC, even if you're a really good player, I'm not really sure if you should buy this. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to go over all the features and see what it looks like. So without further ado, let's get started. So getting an overview of everything Outer Rim DLC has to give you, you're going to see that there's one new game mode, Extraction, 4 new maps, new heroes and villains, new blasters, and new star cards. There's really not a lot of new stuff that they're giving you here. Comparing it to Bespin, you're going to see that there's a lot less. So yeah, so let's get started with Extraction. Okay, so looking at an overview, I guess, of Extraction, you're going to see that it's the newest game mode that is the only game mode that comes with Outer Rim DLC. And basically, it's where the rebels have to move their cargo to their escape ship while the Imperials have to stop it. There are 3 checkpoints, and if the rebels pass those 3 checkpoints, then they win. If the Imperials stop them at any checkpoint, then they win. So it's pretty exciting. It's pretty fun game mode, but it's the only game mode that they give you in this DLC. So definitely there is a kind of a con there, because in Bespin DLC there was several remakes on Drop Zone and Fighter Squadron that made it more like there was more to add to the game. So there's definitely a con there. Moving on, we have the 4 new maps. Now, Java's Palace, Palace Garage, Source Hub Refinery, and Source Hub Pipelines. They're all there to play on Extraction. They're also there to play Blast and Cargo and a couple of the other smaller game modes, but they're not there to play Walker Assault or Supremacy or Turning Point. There was no large game mode map that was made in this DLC, so there's definitely another con there that I have to say. If you had to choose between Bespin or Outer Rim, Bespin is definitely looking like the clear winner right now, only because of what they're giving you in this expansion pack is not the greatest. So that's definitely another con there. But now moving on to the new heroes and villains, Nia, Nub, and Greedo, you're going to notice that this is definitely a pro to this expansion pack, only because Nia Nub, in short, is the best hero in the game right now because of his ability to kill enemies at long range and short range and be overall one of the best support characters for the rebels. And then you have Greedo, who is one of the most feared villains on the other team, only if you're doing heroes versus villains, because he can melt heroes very, very quickly because of his confidence meter. So I do believe the heroes and villains in this expansion pack are amazing and definitely worth buying if you're a competitive player. So there's a pro there, and that's definitely different from Bespin DLC. Looking at the new blasters, you have the DT-12 and the Relby V-10. I have to say that both of these blasters are relatively mediocre, although the DT-12 is very good after its buff, and because it was buffed to shoot faster after a little while, and people noticed that it wasn't very good. But definitely the Relby V10 still isn't very viable to be very competitive. It is definitely better because they changed this gun also. Its you know, spread of bullets was very bad before, but now it's better. So both of these are decent blasters, but definitely not game breaking like the EE4 is. And I mean, they're definitely better than the X8 Night Sniper, but I definitely can't say that both of these blasters being decent doesn't trump the fact that the EE4 is game breaking still. Finally, the last pro to the Outer Rim DLC is the star cards, because the Adrenaline Stim, Dioxis Grenade, and Scattergun were released. Now, if you don't know anything about the new Bespin DLC, or just any of these star cards in general, basically Adrenaline Stim is a perk that you can use, and you use it and your health comes back relatively quickly for a period of like 10 seconds or like 8 seconds maybe. And Dioxis Grenade is a toxic grenade you throw, and it has a pretty big radius damages, and it does a lot of damage. And Scattergun basically is a 2-shot shotgun that you can use as a star card. It has about like a 20-second cooldown, or maybe it's 40-second, I'm not really sure. But basically all 3 of these star cards are still used today in most game types, and that being said, they're definitely better than Bespin DLC because the Bespin DLC cards I rarely ever see, only because they're not that great and they're not really that good. So with that being said, I definitely think that the star cards in Outer Rim DLC are a lot better. So that is basically it. I know this was a lot shorter than the Bespin DLC video I had to make, but like I said, there's not as much really to talk about in this video, and that's just simply because there's not as much in this DLC. I guess I really could mention the Berserker trait, the Back to Bomb, the DLT-19X, and the DL-18, but they were free to everyone, so they really don't count as the Outer Rim DLC items. But anyway, now it's time to choose a final verdict, which one really is better. So when looking over everything I just said basically that Extraction is not as good as all of the other game modes that came out with Bespin DLC, because they had Sabotage and Refined, Fighter Squadron, and Drop Zone. So definitely not as good. The 4 new maps there in Outer Rim DLC are only good for smaller game modes, so they're not as good as the newer maps for Bespin DLC, because there are Walker Assault, Turning Point, Supremacy maps also in Bespin DLC. But the heroes and villains are definitely better in Outer Rim DLC than they are in Bespin DLC. New blasters, however, are fairly average in Outer Rim DLC and not as good as the E4 in the Bespin DLC. And then the new star cards, basically the star cards in Outer Rim DLC are much better than the star cards in Bespin DLC. So an overall verdict, you're going to have 3 cons to 2 pros. And it really is relative on how you like to play. So if you are a competitive player and you're going to want those heroes and villains and the star cards, then you're probably going to want Outer Rim DLC. But if you're more of a casual player and just want to have more things to do, then I'm sure you would like to have Bespin DLC more, because there are more game modes, more maps, and they still have the blasters and the star cards and the heroes. It's just they're not as good. However, those heroes are getting buffed soon, so maybe they will be better. So honestly, I have to say Bespin DLC is better than Outer Rim DLC as a final verdict. So now guys, it's up to you to tell me whether or not I'm right or wrong, whether or not you believe Outer Rim DLC is better than Bespin DLC, or you agree with me and Bespin DLC is better than Outer Rim DLC. Now I know the title of this was, is it worth buying? Well, it basically tells you right now that if you had to only buy one of them, well then I would definitely choose Bespin DLC. So guys, if you enjoyed this video or thought it was helpful in any way, then definitely leave a like. It shows a lot of support for the channel and really helps me out ultimately to know whether or not you guys like videos like these. Also, if you haven't subscribed already, you should definitely subscribe, because I will be posting a lot in the coming days, and the Death Star content and stuff is getting really close, and I'm a season pass holder, so I'll be getting it early, so you guys could definitely see that stuff when it comes out. But that's really about it guys, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.